9-game NBA slate. Ton of games, ton of interesting games as well. Some matchups that we're going to need to parse through with the help of one great man. Me, Chris Spags. One other great man, though, the basketball savant, rather, the genius of it all. Fast Eddie Fear. Eddie, how are you doing?
Busy. Still unable to make you not appear like a disembodied head. Spent about a half hour online with Josh Engelman trying to make the Zoom interface work right, and he looked like a perfectly pleasant, affable, normal-headed sided individual, but you look like a Marvel villain again. But that's just something we're gonna have to deal with.
It is something, that's just life sometimes. Life occasionally turns you into a giant disembodied head. It's probably what happened with Zordon of the Power Rangers fame.
Yeah, I think so.
We can all relate there. Today we're gonna take up some values up front. Then we're gonna go through game by game. Have Eddie give his notes. I'll give a little spiel. We're gonna try to give a little more structure to this because unlike yesterday's slate, we do have a ton of games to hit, ton of information from Eddie to hit. So let's get to it. Eddie, let's give us your value guys up front. Who are the main guys who are popping off to you as being people that you would want to play if you were making lineups?
Yeah, it ends up being incredibly site dependent. Building lineups on FanDuel today is a Sisyphean task. It is dreadful, not enjoyable whatsoever. Like literally almost every lineup I built on FanDuel was either like Anthony Davis and terrible punts that I didn't like, or a group of 9 not terribly priced players. But FanDuel is especially dreadful when it comes to value there, and just the pricing on most guys, which nothing is inherently right or wrong, but it's much more difficult to build a lineup containing players you really like on FanDuel today as opposed to, say, DraftKings. DraftKings, in the opposite, there's a lot of guys who just seem like they're priced much better than their situation would give you. You know, Kyrie at 6,600, Alfred against the Kings at 5,800, still coming off his triple-double. No value jumps out to me as this is a guy you must play. I have a fair bit of interest in, Trier at 3,400 with Courtney Lee still out. He should still get minutes into the 20s in a good matchup with Brooklyn. I kind of like him in tournaments. A lot of mid-priced guys who are priced really well, like Alex Len at 5,100. Chetty Osman on DK is still only 5,400. That's still pretty cashy for a guy in the low numbers. I think you can throw some interest at. But most of the other, guys we would talk about as value, whether or not it's Corey Joseph or Derrick Rose. I like Yogi Ferrell a lot. He's 3,900 on FanDuel. He's like one of 2 players on the site who's cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DK. I like that as well. But there's not any, I think this is a top value play, and that's one of the sort of issues here. I can talk about a lot of guys I kind of like, but there's everybody from the Sam Deckers of the world at 3,200 to guys who are more interested in tournaments. I still don't think, maybe I'm checking, maybe it's come out in the last 10 minutes as we were screwing around with the video, gotten some news on Marc Gasol. Doesn't appear to be. That's an 8 o'clock game. Pretty frustrating for me having these slates with 9 games, but only 2 games starting with an hour of lock. There adds a lot of uncertainty to the situation. So let's readdress value in a little bit and see if anything slightly more intuitive opens up. I'm finishing up the projections as we speak, and the rankings will be up in about 5 minutes. I have to redo 2 teams after some news, but updating and putting in a second after Spags talks about something he likes for a minute.
Well, I'll talk about one value guy that I like, a little bit higher price than some of the guys that you mentioned, but Mr. 42 in the premium Slack. And again, if you are not a premium member of Osmo.com, that is the first place we're looking for questions and comments and stuff during the show. So go sign up now. We promo code live before lock. We'll get you 1 week free at Osmo.com. So you get in there, a lot of good information in addition to being bumped up the queue of questions. Mr. 42 asking about Nemanja Bjelica. God, I see that name, I know that name, but I see it written out, and every time it makes my brain just immediately stroke
Ryan
out.
Arcidiacono, I maul that name. It's the only name in the entire NBA I have trouble with is that one. Nemanja Bjelica, if it makes you feel better, you're much better than half the touts. He was doing his thing up in the Great North for quite some time, and he'd been playing every day 30 minutes for 2 weeks, and I still heard people on going, so what do you think about Bjelica today? And the other guy was like, I think Bjelica is good. And I'm like, really? It's been 2 weeks, guys.
I've watched him play a lot. I enjoy his work.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, talk about Bjelica, and then I'll happily follow up because I am a fan. And again, one of the players is not grotesquely priced on FanDuel in a related story.
Yeah. On DK, I think he makes a lot of things work. I consider him a player who's similar to another guy whose price is up a little bit, but still, I think, in a reasonable rate. And you might disagree, Eddie, when we talk about him. Chetty Osman, I think, is similar. Just guys who do a lot of things across the floor, who can get rebounds, who can create plays, similar kind of European-style players who I think can do a variety of things. I like Bielitsa whenever he started for the Timberwolves. And with these Kings, I think a player like him who is more steady than not, I think is a guy that you can trust, especially in a pace-up matchup versus New Orleans, where, they showed some good defense versus the Rockets in a sort of surprising, I thought. So I think Bielitsa, a guy who's kind of a Swiss Army knife, is someone who jumps out to me. So Mr. 42, I do, in fact, love Bielitsa and have an ungodly amount of them tonight.
Yeah, I'm fine. Someone had me looking at Yahoo earlier today. He's still the minimum there. That's obviously pretty compelling. But he's $5,000 on FanDuel and 40-something odd on DK, and those are all nice prices. Now, your issue here, like, everything is great about it, except for the fact that I can't guarantee he starts and I can't guarantee he plays 30 minutes again. Like, the local press to the national press to everyone in our community, who I'm sure Dave Yeager doesn't give a shit about, really jumped up and down on a couple lineups on their opening games, being the Kings and the Grizzlies, both of whom just ran the stupidest guys out there for incredible periods of time. Bielitsa is a fine player, but on a team where you're not winning shit this year anyway, and you have Bagley in there and Harry Giles, who I'm a huge fan of. Bielitsa played 30 minutes. Bagley played 12. Giles played 10. So I'm not shocked if Bielitsa plays 24 minutes tonight. So I still like him. There is obviously a huge upside. The matchup should be 680 miles an hour. The over-under, I actually haven't looked at the over-unders yet today, but I'm sure it's north of 230. I like him quite a bit, but he will be somewhat popular, and there's a chance the minutes get a little bit fuctured. So those would be my comments there. I would probably risk it, but I think it's just due diligence wise to point out that, hey, there's some chance that his minutes do take a decrease today. I mean, they changed the starting lineup 3 times in the last day before they started the game, after coming out and saying this should be our starting lineup. So yeah, they not exciting what they are doing there.
Yeah, no, I think that does make sense. And, he is a tough coach to trust, especially with so many young players that they want to get minutes for. But that starting group looked really good, and I am buying in on them, though. The ownership that we have projected at Osmo.com for the Kings is really just hideous. A lot of ownership for those guys. People trusting them after one good game does seem like a bit of a scary spot, even though it is kind of a perfect matchup versus the Pelicans.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox, another guy. There are only a couple teams that are priced well on FanDuel, and it's relatively well, but the Celtics and the Kings yell to play them on FanDuel. De'Aaron Fox is 6,500 on both sites. On DK, I think he's still an absolutely great play. The ownership will be down because you're going to have lots of Elfrid and lots of Kyrie and lots of other guys who are taking up those point guard spots and those mid-price slots, so it makes plenty of sense in a tournament there, and played 37 minutes in the first game, so no issue with De'Aaron Fox there, but on FanDuel especially, there's like only 3 reasonably priced point guards. Everyone is super more expensive. None of the bargain guys are that great. So, yeah, De'Aaron Fox over on FanDuel, I would expect to have a massive ownership, and he should. He is priced into being a very strong play.
All right, so let's go. Let's start from the top with the games we're going through today. The first one up on my schedule, Charlotte and Orlando. Charlotte had a pretty tough matchup versus Milwaukee. Some interesting stuff raised by our guy Ship My Money in the premium Slack today, where he's talking about Kemba Walker's usage without Dwight Howard. Jumped off the page last year. This year, too, I think it's obviously going to be similar. Charlotte playing with a little more pace. Kemba really looking like he's going to gun across the board. Charlotte's an interesting team to me. Orlando as well. Giving up a ton of rebounds. I think that Cody Zeller is in an interesting rebound spot, literally and figuratively. I think that,
nice.
He's super cheap.
Very nice double entendre with Cody Zeller. That was really good.
I do what I can when I'm filling air when you're trying to bang out some projections.
No, really nice. I'm redoing the Raptors and then I'm hitting send. So we're almost there. Vamp as we call it in the industry. This for like 30 seconds, and then I'll do some uploading and we'll be all steam ahead.
I'm straight vamping. But yeah, no, Charlotte, I think, is in a good spot. The Kemba thing that Ship My Money said definitely gave me a little more equity in him tonight than I would have prepared for. I was kind of thinking I wanted to go to Batum, but I think Walker, with that kind of usage, I think he's posting a 33% usage with Dwight out of the lineup. Obviously, he went nuts the other day. Won't put up 40 points every game or 13 3-point attempts every game, but it's a good matchup versus Orlando where nobody should be able to defend him. I like this matchup overall. I think it's kind of an attractive one. I think Vucevic being in kind of a rebound spot with Mo Bamba stealing his minutes in that last matchup could be good too. I think there's a lot of places to go here that'll probably go overlooked with according to our ownership projections at Osmo.com. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by this game. Eddie, any game notes on this?
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by the game. It is historically not a great matchup for Batum and his time spent on the court against Fournier, against Simmons, against Orlando. Again, not so much of that will carry forward. Both teams have new coaches. Also, don't underestimate Steve Clifford revenge narrative. But so a real interesting thing will be whether or not Orlando continues to push really big in the face of Charlotte pushing really small. Last game, Charlotte ran out something like 33 minutes total of centers. You had like 21 minutes of Cody Zeller and 12 minutes of Willie Hernangomez, and then Michael Kidd-Gilchrist playing center for an extended period of the game. They ended the game with the super small lineup with Kemba and Kidd-Gilchrist alongside Tony Parker and Malik Monk out there all together. So the question will really be if Orlando continues to play some combination of Gordon, Vooch, and Mo Bamba at all times, two of those guys, does that portend extra minutes for Cody Zeller and Willie Hernangomez, or do they attempt to follow suit and go small themselves, and what does that turn the game into? I'm a little more inclined to think it goes big than you get another super small game, but either way, I absolutely love Kemba Walker. Been a fine matchup in which he's had an upside in the fast. His usage looks really solid this year. Borrego from the beginning of the season has been saying, beginning of the preseason, has been saying what he's going to do, and it's really taking that form. So I don't think he scores 50 plus every game, but I do think he is a player who's going to be worth consistently an 8K salary this year in neutral strong matchups like this one.
Yeah, that price on DK is a bit of a kick in the dick, but I do think he's worth it. And I think, paying up a little bit to be contrarian there, he's currently projected for less than 5% ownership at Osmo.com. So I would say, hey, if Kemba's got upside, he's going to be able to shoot and kind of have carte blanche to run the offense as he sees fit. That's a spot where I'll take him. Let's talk about New York and Brooklyn next. New York played at the fastest pace so far this year in their matchup with Atlanta, going against Brooklyn. Brooklyn is going to have Alan Crabb back in the lineup. Still no Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, who is out with, I guess, now a personal issue instead of a hip issue. A little strange there.
Is he actually, he's confirmed out, Rondé?
I believe he was confirmed out right before we went live.
Okay.
I might be misreading that because I get so many alerts on my phone, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm playing it like he is anyway, and if not, he'll be greatly limited because he hasn't played at all in weeks, and he's not going to get the Jimmy Butler treatment where they give him the full entree right away. I think there's a lot of guys to like in this matchup. I like Russell in a rebound spot. I mentioned the switch and hedge column, which I do every day on Osmo.com. D'Angelo Russell actually gets a pretty big boost by Alan Crabb being on the floor, which makes sense for playmaking perspective. He also frees up some space for Russell to do what he does. So I actually like Russell getting back on track tonight too. Cantor looks great. Jarrett Allen looked great in that first matchup versus Detroit. I think there's a lot of guys here in this matchup that you can go with. What do you think, Eddie?
Yeah, I definitely think you have it right there. Crab coming back, limits what otherwise. If Crab had stayed out another game, we would have been able to do some nice things by sticking it out with. Well, there's a couple guys that would have been a little more advantaged, but getting more exposure to Harris, for example. But yeah, I have, a little more reticence about Karis LeVert than I would. He doesn't even necessarily continue to start. I don't think we've seen that lineup per se, so I have some amount of concern there. But Jarrett Allen is interesting. Obviously just excelled in what's a really tough matchup with Andre Drummond. So how do you think he doesn't continue to do the same thing against Enes Kanter, who is like Andre Drummond, but in every way easier for the opposition? Like, he's also an elite rebounder. Both those guys are a couple of really, really stellar rebounders. So in theory, that would limit your upside. I don't know if you can always count on that many blocks from Jarrett Allen, but he's still priced to move in tournaments for the Nets. But yeah, I think D'Angelo Russell would be my favorite guy in the Nets tonight by a pretty decent margin. And then Jarrett Allen. And then I still think you can have some exposure to LeVert, but obviously the price increases have been for real.
And how are you feeling about the Nets side? Obviously, the center versus the Nets thing has been a popular meme in the DFS community for years. Enes Kanter, I think, has torn him up just this past preseason as well. Obviously, Tim Hardaway Jr. on the Knicks side as well, been getting a ton of usage. What do you think about these guys? I'm inclined to fade Hardaway and go Kanter and maybe go back to Burke again. Burke was very efficient, didn't quite get the usage Hardaway Jr. did, but I think he looked good for the most part. What are you thinking about the New York side?
Yeah, I really like Enes Kanter. He's, again, on that small list of players who aren't grotesquely overpriced on FanDuel, so he's one of, 2 or 3 centers who would make up a lot of my ownership there. The matchup is absolutely tremendous. Again, historical trends aside, Jared Allen has a lot of things, and he accrues plenty of defensive stats, but he's not prohibitive defensively. It's not going to limit Enes Kanter in any way. I think you can play Kevin Knox in tournaments again. I think on FanDuel, where you're going to have some pretty massive Dennis Schroeder ownership, pivoting to Tim Hardaway Jr. makes a lot of sense. He's still priced just fine. He had a monster in the preseason against the Nets. So did Kanter. It's really strong matchups for those two guys. You can go back to Trey Burke. I think you do get more than the 21 minutes you got last game. It's just tournaments, but you can certainly go back there again. And then Alonzo Trier, as I mentioned, 3,400 on DK. Courtney Lee should still be out. That should mean he still gets minute into the mid-20s. At 3,400 in a really solid matchup, I'm pretty excited about that. So.
All right, on to Boston and Toronto. One of the lower totaled games on the slate. Seems like they're expecting a bit of a defensive matchup. Kyrie Irving drawing some of the most ownership in this matchup on the Boston side. Very cheap on DraftKings. Seems like he's in a perfect spot. Osmo, I believe, has him as an A value today as well. So it makes kind of sense to go back to Kyrie, though he didn't look that good in the matchup versus Philadelphia. Maybe some reason for concern there. On the Toronto side, we have Kawhi picking up a ton of ownership, as I mentioned. Kyle Lowry coming in with substantially less, under 10%. He was very efficient in that first game. Kind of hard to question if he'll be as efficient in this game, but maybe get a little more usage than he did in that one. It's an interesting spot, but not one I'm super attracted to. What are your notes on this one, Eddie?
Yeah, I generally think I do want to be underweight on most of the teams in this game. Look, there's lots of players here who people are going to like to target. And obviously, there are some price deals that are hard to ignore. Kawhi is still at, I think he's 8,500 on DK, and that's still too cheap for what Kawhi is going to do. Similar take on him as I had, say, on Josh Richardson yesterday, which was, I was just really excited to see the number of shots he took. But these are the two best defensive teams in the East, and I do expect that to some extent limit the amount of production that we can get out of guys in this game. So I have basically no interest in stacking this game, for example, as other people have talked about. I'd be surprised if this game put up any significantly appreciable amount of numbers, put mildly. But so yeah, specifically let me so again, on FanDuel, some of these guys are just priced too well. Like, I'm not a big Jason Tatum fan tonight, but he's priced where he should be on FanDuel. He's 6,400. Okay, that's about where he should be priced. Again, they're going to run that rotation really deep. Nobody got 20 minutes last game. Nobody's going to get 20 minutes this game, or 30 minutes rather, pardon me. Jaylen Brown's 5,300. I'm not excited about Jaylen Brown at 5,300, but that's about where he should be priced on FanDuel. So that gives me some degree of interest in those guys. Other than that, really hard, you can, I don't know, I really don't want to take anyone else on FanDuel. On DK, Hayward's down to 5,800. That's cute for a tournament shot. They're talking about, he's got limited minutes. They're limiting him at 25 and 30, which could creep up a couple. And no one on the team is playing more than 29, so he's not, being heavily limited, I guess is my point. The price on Kyrie, I do think, is worth taking advantage. I think it's sort of a cash play at this point. You just expect his usage to be decent enough. Last game was an absolute floor game. That price is really cheap. Has had plenty of successful games against Lowry in the past. So I like Kyrie quite a bit at 6,600. I wouldn't dissuade anyone from using him. And then past that, Marcus Morris in the mid-fours makes an interesting tournament play. But this is a game where I'm not, looking at it and thinking you have to be super on anyone. I would say Fred VanVleet. Price is up to mid-fours on everyone, but if this game goes sideways, you could get another of those Fred VanVleet playing out the string games with no Delon Wright available. And that, that does add enough of an upside that if, you're building 10-plus lineups, some exposure to Fred VanVleet makes sense to me. But Kawhi on DK, more as a cash play, really, honestly, for me. But he's just underpriced. I would rather play Jimmy Butler in a vastly better matchup, I think, tonight. But yeah, Kyle Lowry in a tournament, fine. Danny Green in a tournament, always a tournament guy because it's so steal and 3 dependent. But he's coming off a big game. He's going to be more owned than I think he should be. I'd rather look elsewhere. So yeah, just not a game that's making my socks roll up and down.
Any interest in Jonas? I don't think he has a great track record versus Boston,
He
but he
doesn't.
seems like a guy who should be better versus Boston.
Well, he it sort of goes both ways. Like Boston ends up making a lot of teams pull their bigs off the court because they'll end up running out there with Tatum at the 4 and Horford at the 5, and both those guys can shoot the 3. And now you've got Jonas Valanciunas running out there and trying to defend 3-pointers, and he's not good at that. As Dwayne Casey used to point out repeatedly, people would ask, why the hell don't you play Valanciunas more? I'd be like, well, it's not fair to put him out there where he has to guard 3-point shooters, and it's like, okay. He's also not starting. We just got the Raptors starting lineup about 10 minutes ago. Lowry,
Okay.
Green, Leonard, Pascal, and Ibaka. So we're keeping Danny Green in there instead of going to Anunoby, which was a change a lot of people thought we might see. But we have Ibaka starting again, Valanciunas off the bench. Val is still in play in tournaments because even if, I would project him now for 18, 19 minutes, I'd have to be building a lot of lineups. But he can score 30, 35 in 18, 19 minutes. If anywhere he's under like 6K or low 6s, I could see doing that. As you get higher in price, I'm just going to play, guys in that Enes Kanter category, or Steven Adams is 69, I think, etc. Which is nice.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, to me, he's always intriguing as a tournament play, and coming off the bench too, obviously going against the second unit is sort of where Jonas does tend to thrive if he does get those shots, but the minutes are tough there. Just somebody I think to put a flag in if you are playing a mass multi-entering kind of situation, because he does jump out to me as very low owned given what we know about him on a permanent basis. Real quick, one plug, throw us a like if you're watching this video on YouTube. We have almost 900 people watching right now on there. Every like helps us out. This content's all free on YouTube. We are looking at your questions and stuff, so help us out, be supportive, like, subscribe, do all the things. We have a ton of great content on this channel every day to help you out and make you better at DFS. So please do that for us now. Thank you. Let's talk about the Atlanta-Memphis game. Another game with some interesting ownership. Probably, I assume a lot of people gravitating towards that Atlanta pace. I am not as crazy about this game as some folks, especially once I saw that Marc Gasol was one of the chalkier centers on the slate, coming off of an injury. I don't know what to make of this. I feel like I should have more of it, but I don't. What do you think about the Atlanta-Memphis game, Eddie?
I think I'm a little more on their side than your side, if I'm being honest.
Fair.
I think there's a lot of very... Hold on, I'm trying to actually upload the rankings again. I'm remoting through our... Okay, that should have done it. So I'm going to close all this shit down so I can finally give this 100% of my attention. Sorry, sometimes I want to put up the best rankings I can, and when news starts breaking as the show starts, my choices are either put up bad rankings or edit them during the show, and nothing good comes of it. But anyhow, they've been uploaded now. Yeah, so I think I'm more on the I'm a fan of this game side of things. Alex Len is still very cheap, and cheap enough that also on FanDuel, where everyone is too goddamn expensive, he's only 5,400, which is a tolerable price. Got in foul trouble last time. I think it's an interesting tournament play. Looked bad last time, so the ownership comes down, but they don't have anyone to back him up. Amari Spellman is out now, too. So Dwayne Dedman's out. John Collins is out. Amari Spellman is out. They'd really like to get some minutes out of Alex Len, so he's going to get every opportunity to play 36 minutes if he wants them, which is what they gave him in the last game of the preseason. They will give him 36 minutes. So I have a lot of interest there in tournaments. I kind of like him on FanDuel just because you randomly hit the Yahtzee if Gasol ends up out, who is, questionable with back issues, and then you can back end into some things if those other guys are out. It's difficult to look at a lot of guys on Memphis. Swapping into Marc Gasol, if we find out he's in, is very interesting at 7,200. That's obviously a stellar matchup. The ownership will be low because you'll have to swap into him. No one wants to throw him in there now. Swapping into, in the event he is out, $4,600 and $4,700 Jaren Jackson and JaMychal Green make a ton of sense. I would like the former a little bit more, but they both would be very, very intriguing plays. They're tough to do right now. On FanDuel, I think you can do JaMychal Green right now in tournaments at 5,100. 6,100 for Jaren Jackson bothers me. There's a chance that, Gasol plays and he gets 17 minutes, and $6,000 is not going to feel good. Conley is someone, if we find out Gasol is out, the swap from Kyrie into Conley, if you have $200 sitting around, makes a lot of sense for me. You go from chalkier guy in a really, really difficult matchup to much less chalky guy in a cream dream kind of matchup. 7,900 on FanDuel is a lot for Mike Conley, especially not knowing if Gasol is going to play. Not out of play there, but you'd have to be some number of lineups in for me to do it. But $6,800 Mike Conley with no Gasol out there hasn't had a good game of basketball in a year. but this would certainly be the spot you'd expect to see it. I don't mind Chandler Parsons. I look at him as a tournament punt, not a cash punt. I don't know if the minutes are going to be the same. Again, they completely fucked their lineup at the wings last time, where you had, Marshawn Brooks getting fewer minutes than expected, and Dylan Brooks and Wayne Selden barely playing, and Garrett Temple playing into the 20s in minutes, and Kyle Anderson, who they just signed to a big deal, not getting enough time. I don't think we need to go with any of those guys, but if I was playing, 100 lineups, I'd have a share of Kyle Anderson, thinking that could bounce. I'd have a couple shares of Chandler Parsons, but looking at that team, yeah, Conley, especially potentially on the switch, makes a lot of sense. The switch to Gasol if he's in Jaren Jackson and JaMychal Green switches, and even JaMychal Green right now, in theory, on FanDuel makes some sense at a weak position. On the other side of the ball, Trae Young is too cheap. $6,100 on FanDuel is actually a little cheap for him. He's one of the only players on the entire side I'd look at there and be like, that guy's maybe a little cheaper than he should be. You could go badly with Conley, but one of these days he will shoot better than 30% from the field. He's always a threat to get double-digit assists. 61 on FanDuel, 56 on DK. Just tournaments, but all the upside in the world is there. Like, when everything goes badly against him, and they were getting absolutely mauled by the Knicks last game, they let him play out the rest of that game. He was out there for still 33 minutes. I really like some exposure to Trae Young. I really like Taurean Prince in tournaments. Basically the leader of this team at this point, just not going to be owned as much as he should. I'm curious what our ownership projections have him at, but pretty excited about it myself. Let me see what else.
Oh, Larry Nance just ruled out, by the way, according to our premium Slack right now. Ooh, so some interesting things there.
You can play some Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson now makes a pretty compelling center punt. Has a perfectly decent history against Karl-Anthony Towns. Watched some tape on it earlier today. If you go back at games he's played a lot against Karl-Anthony Towns, from the beginning of 2017, they played 38 minutes apiece against each other. Towns had 26, 12, and 4 with a steal and 2 blocks. Tristan had 18 and 14 with an assist, a steal, and 2 blocks. The game after that, Tristan started against him in 35 minutes. He had 14 and an 11 with an assist. The game after that, Love started at center, if I recall correctly. I don't have time really to look it up. And then the last one, 17 and 5, 2 assists and a steal for Tristan. 4,100 suddenly makes him a reasonably compelling punt play at center on FanDuel, where they really, from the end of the preseason to now, have cleaned up the number of... There used to be like 5 minimum price guys at every position. It was like, geez, which of these excellent 3,500 guys am I hoping to have my score dropped with? But Tristan there makes some sense, and still I think he's 47 on DK. That's obviously much less inspiring. I don't know if we want to move on to that game now, but yeah, Tristan.
Yeah, let's do just the quick highlights of this. Minnesota, one of the higher total teams on the slate today. As we mentioned, Larry Nance is out. I'm kind of crazy about Kevin Love in this matchup. I also think now that we know Nance is out, I think Osman, maintains a similar interest to me. You could have maybe talked me into fading him a little more if Nance were in, just because of the loss of the rebounding. But I love everything Chetty does. I think he's a very functional player, as I mentioned up top on the show. I like him a lot. Tristan, I'm with you on him as well. George Hill, a little interested in. He had a pretty good first game. There's just not enough guys there to handle the ball and to score. I think that's always a good spot for him. On the Minnesota side, I'm personally fading Jimmy Butler tonight. Just the price is up a ton on DK. I don't need to be there. I do have some Towns. I do have some Teague. Wiggins intrigues me a little, which I don't like. He looked good in that first game, looked kind of aggressive in a way that I wasn't prepared to see Andrew Wiggins looking aggressive. And maybe Jimmy Butler's Stockholm Syndrome is wearing off on him a little bit. So I'm intrigued by this game, but I think Love is really the guy, and Osman are the guys I have a ton of above the field for sure.
Yeah, I will go as far as I certainly don't mind the Osman on DK. I think he's in play, although he mostly becomes a tournament play for me on FanDuel. I don't hate him in cash there. Obviously, again, there's not a ton of great, small forward players. I'd probably rather play Paul George even at 9.2. I'd probably rather play Bielitz at 5,000, but I don't have an issue if you want to play Chetty Osman in your cash lineup on FanDuel. Kevin Love, for me, is tough on a day with a lot of other strong plays. I think I'd slightly prefer Aaron Gordon, and both of them would be just tournaments for me. But certainly, if he gets fully healthy, which I don't think he is, there's a massive upside for him. You like the sort of revenge matchup for him. This is certainly a Minnesota team that has looked dreadful defensively. So preseason right through first regular season game against the Spurs, through just absolutely everything. So I don't have any issue with Kevin Love in tournaments. He'd be in like my 4th or 5th lineup, I think. Not someone I'm rushing to get in there, but certainly there is all the upside in the world.
Over 30 minutes at an over 30% usage rate was what jumped out at me in that first game, even though they said they were kind of, Ty Lue said he was going to phase him in a little more because he wasn't in shape and his foot was hurting and whatever. The revenge game thing is driving up his ownership a little bit, according to our projections. So that kind of does spook me a little bit. Yeah, I definitely have a ton of love, and I think he's in a good spot. Let's pick up the pace, appropriately for the Sacramento Kings, New Orleans Pelicans matchup. Pelicans have the highest team total in the day. Sacramento coming along for the ride with them with a 111 team total, very high for Sacramento team standards. We got Buddy Hield, Willie Cauley-Stein expected to have a ton of ownership. De'Aaron Fox, Yogi Ferrell, and Bjelica having less ownership behind them. On the New Orleans side, there's going to be a ton of ownership going to Drew Holiday and Elfrid Payton, according to our projections at Osmo.com. I like Payton still. I like Drew a little less because I think his role is being eaten by Payton in a way, as well as Randall and Mirotic usage, which was off the chain in that last game. So I'm a little spooked on Holiday, but I do love this game. Obviously, you need to have some exposure to it, I would say, tonight to have a shot at winning. What are your notes on this one, Eddie?
Yeah, it'd be hard to imagine no one in this game puts up a decent number. So, again, there's obviously a lot of uncertainty in dealing with the Sacramento side of the ball. I will say I'm pretty sure I don't want to play any Willie Cauley-Stein. Like he looked good in one game in a really tough matchup. I will give him full marks for looking really good against Rudy Gobert, and that is not easy to do. I don't like him as much in a game of this pace. He has been thoroughly stomped around the head and shoulders by Anthony Davis many, many times. I went back and watched 20 minutes of footage of just those two, and it should have been a snuff film. Like, I felt dirty watching it. Like, it's just, I'm not doing it. There's others, I will much on FanDuel, you can play Enes Kanter or Steven Adams. I will happily play either of those gentlemen over Willie Cauley-Stein, especially if I think there's any sort of ownership advantage there. DK is 6,300. That makes me a little more excited. But again, I will attempt to go 3 days in a row picking a piece of chalk that I think will underperform. I think there is a real chance with adequate backups and what could be a nightmarish matchup that he flops. So I'm going fade Willie Cauley-Stein today. We'll try to do 3 straight after Jeremy Lin, and who the hell did we fade really well yesterday? I don't know, Jeremy Lin and then somebody. But Campaign. Yeah. So we'll go 3 straight. It's a higher priced guy we're looking at here. I don't know if the owner. What do they say the ownership will be?
For Willie, we have him at 21% on DK.
Jesus. Yeah, I'll go somewhere else. I'll go somewhere else at that number. I do like Bjelica. There is risk. I like him more on DK because A is a little cheaper, although, again, 5K on FanDuel is better than 4,600 on DK today, certainly. But the ability to swap off if it turns out he isn't starting, I'm not shocked if you get, Bagley starting at the 3 or the 4 and Hield moving up to the 2 and Frank Mason start. Frank Mason played 5 minutes last game. People thought he was going to start. So I'd be nervous. Like, I feel pretty safe with De'Aaron Fox, and the price is exceptional. Feel free to have all the De'Aaron Fox you want. I will not try to stop you. Yogi Ferrell has infinite upside and played very significant minutes last game, and I think we can count on that again. I really like him at 3,900, 4,000, but I'm not shocked if the minutes come way down. Buddy Hield will have a role. FanDuel 6,300 for today. That's actually a pretty good price for him. 5,600 on DK. No issue with that. Bjelica we've talked about. On FanDuel in tournament punts, I would have Harry Giles at power forward as maybe in my GPP lineup, the 3,500 guy I'm trying to punt on. Like, if you're trying to play Anthony Davis, and I built on my Periscope last night live, they were like, try to build a FanDuel lineup with Anthony Davis in it, and I ended up stacking this game somewhat unintentionally, but you end up playing Harry Giles and Nemanja Bjelica because he's only 5,000 and De'Aaron Fox because he's 6,500, and I just ended up having a huge amount of exposure to the guys from this game. Even Elfrid Payton on FanDuel is still an equitable price relative to everyone else. There's all of 25 guys on the site I look at, and the price doesn't make me a little bit ill. So, and several of them are in this game. So, yeah. To sum up, it ends up being very price dependent, but no issue with Bjelica anywhere, no issue with Ferrell anywhere, no issue with Fox anywhere, no issue with Hield anywhere, really. Willie is where I think I'm going to draw the line and try to go somewhere else. And then those guys off the bench, where priced in and format makes sense. For the Pelicans, again, Julius Randle has plantar fasciitis. For that reason and the way they're going right now, I would rather play Mirotic today. I'd expect more minutes. Randle even left the last game for a little bit briefly due to foot soreness. another game at 300 miles an hour, it wouldn't shock me to see it aggravated. Again, I wouldn't say there's more than a 15% chance his foot is an issue, but there's 4 other plays I like just as much or more in this game. I understand your Drew Holiday reticence. Certainly, he needs to do some good stuff to pay off that price on either FanDuel or DraftKings. $7,200 on DK. You're taking him. I mean, he's $1,400 more than Elfrid Payton. I expect Payton to. Everyone else will get on the train we started last time, and everyone will be on our Elf train now. But we were here first. Mirotic, fairly priced on FanDuel. $7,200, $7,000 on DK. Those prices are worth it. Anthony Davis on FanDuel. At the end of the day, I am disinclined to play him if I'm playing one lineup. I toyed around with FanDuel for about a total of 2 hours between yesterday and today. I do think you end up slightly better not playing him. But that being said, I really like Anthony Davis. I would project him for north of 60. I would project him for 33, 34 minutes. Even if there is a blowout, which isn't a guarantee, he plays fairly long into blowouts. He's going to play at least 30 minutes. He's probably going to play at least 32 minutes. So DK, I'm a much bigger fan. And where there's punts and the salary floor is lower and it's much more tolerable to get him in there playing. You can still play Kyrie and Elf and Alex Len and Alonzo Trier is a punt and Bielitsa, and you can build a perfectly compelling lineup with Anthony Davis in it. FanDuel building one lineup, disinclined to play right now.
All right, let's go through a little faster on these. We got also news. Russell Westbrook is out today. How does that affect anything you would do on this slate, Eddie?
You can use Felton as more of a tournament play now. You can do that. I still don't want to play any of the 3 shooting guards. They're all terrible. Schroeder obviously becomes solidly better. Paul George becomes solidly better. Like it is difficult to move away from Schroeder on FanDuel. On DK, he's up to 7,700, and he can be a bad shooter. And a lot of guys are priced, much less. So on FanDuel, if you want to go from Schroeder to Kawhi Leonard, and I'm aware they're not the same position, it's $2,600. On DK, it's $800. So, with the relative pricing there, you really don't have to play Schroeder on DK. You don't have to play him on FanDuel either. I think it's perfectly tolerable to instead just run out, Tim Hardaway Jr. as a pivot there, especially if you're not playing Enes Kanter at center. I like making that move. But, yeah, you obviously want a lot of exposure in a really solid matchup for the Thunder to Schroeder and George especially. It's still, I consider, a slight bonus for Steven Adams, who will get up an extra shot or two. And, Jeremy Grant is a little more appealing for me as well.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. And Schroeder is a guy who I definitely need to force in a couple lineups right now because he really looked good in that matchup versus Golden State.
And I doubted him a little bit into the year.
What was that?
I said, go ahead, give me a game. I'll talk. You can force.
Oh, okay, yes. Let's talk about the Clippers side of that, since we already talked about the Oklahoma City side.
Yeah, especially on DraftKings, I still am a bigger fan than many people of Danilo Gallinari. I would definitely try to find a way to get him into a couple of my lineups. He's at 58 or 5,900 now, I think. 1 second, I'll pull it up in my notes here, but he's better than that. That's just an underpricing, and the ownership still won't be there because the first game he wasn't bad. He had 28, 30 or something for about his 6K. But there is really a ceiling beyond that. He's 65 on FanDuel. That's actually fair priced. Tobias Harris, also fairly priced on FanDuel. DK, where he's up at 7,400. There's a lot of better bargains today, so he's just tournaments for me there. But you expect him to have a big role, and this is still a very strong matchup for those guys. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in tournaments, especially DK where he's 3,800, that makes some sense to me. Lou Williams is down to 5,800. Just tournaments, because with the superfluity of guards on that team, I think you still see his minutes staying closer to 23 to 25 instead of the 28 to 30 we were getting much of last year, so some concern there. But a strong matchup. You're going to be able to Avery Bradley in tournaments a little bit if you want for $4,300. I'm not really interested. I don't really want to play Pat Beverly, but yeah, again, I think the guys you want to look at here. Oh, and I should point out that Doc Rivers came out and said he wants to play Boba in every game. Now, it cracks me up when coaches say stuff like that because I want to respond like, you make that choice, right? Like when you say you want to, you can't just do it, right? Like whenever a coach is like, I'm hoping he gets 24 minutes tomorrow, I always want to say like, well, you can just give him, that's your call. Like we don't get to, it's not American Idol. You just choose. I play this guy. So I think it's more likely than not Boban plays today. He's $3,900 goddamn dollars on DK. I don't recall the price on FanDuel offhand, though I imagine it's similarly minimal. I will go take a look real quick, but at those numbers, yeah, I mean he is a fantasy point and a half a minute guy, career. You don't necessarily like the matchup here, but you know, he would be in play for me. I would rather play Tristan Thompson on FanDuel, I think, for $100 more. But yeah, on DK, yeah, he's keeping an eye on late swap as the day progresses onwards. I would have more interest in playing Boban than Willie Cauley-Stein. I'll put it that way.
All right, Golden State and Utah, another game I think is pretty interesting. Utah's been playing with a lot more pace in the preseason and in the opener this year. They have a lot more talent, which I think has given them the confidence to run a little more. So I actually think this matchup could be interesting. I love Steph Curry. I think this is kind of that game, the opener, it seemed like he's just coming out with a fire. And I've read enough articles about him and how he's trying to have the most efficient season he's ever had. And he's got a lot of lofty goals for himself. I just like him in this matchup. I think he's good. I like that his price is up on DK, which makes him pretty under-owned according to our projections at Osmo.com.
What do they have?
I like both sides of this game.
What do they have him at, like 12%?
9%. Good guess.
9%? Okay.
Yeah. Anytime you get Curry under 10, I'm a little interested in it.
Yes, absolutely, and you should be. Anytime we get that ownership down, he is the guy on this team I want to target the most. Draymond has been very bad against the Jazz, which is unsurprising. They're not sloppy as a team, so you get less steals, less blocks. They have two excellent rebounders on the court most of the time, so you're picking up less rebounds. He's less likely to get triple doubles, etc. His price is down where I don't hate Draymond in a tournament at 74 or 67 because he always carries some sort of upside with him, but he'd be the one of the big four I'm the least interested in. Have some interest in Kevin Durant because so many people are going to go a little over him to Giannis or a little over that to Anthony Davis or just going to play other guys. You're going to get Kevin Durant also at a very tolerable ownership who can just do Kevin Durant things. I know that's not the world's best analysis, but you know, on DK,
he is very Kevin Durant-like. I'll give you that.
On DK is $100 less than Steph. I don't think I want Klay Thompson in this matchup. It's just not going to get the chance to get his upside. I don't hate Damian Jones, especially on DK at 3,800. I'd prefer him in cash than tournaments. I would rather play Jordan Bell than Kevon Looney if you're looking at tournaments. You're saving some money. On DK, you save $600, and he's historically been much better against the Jazz, and that doesn't surprise me due to their various strengths. So, yeah, for me, I would. That's how I would do that.
Last game on the slate, which we haven't hit on, Indiana and Milwaukee. Not a terrible total there. Indiana played at the slowest pace in the league in that first game, but they were going against Memphis, who has also been a pretty down-paced team historically. Yeah, Milwaukee didn't quite play as fast as one might have guessed based upon some of their preseason stuff, but Giannis looked amazing. Middleton looked strong as always. Bledsoe had his opportunities, didn't quite make the most of them, but we'll have them again tonight, and it's at a very affordable price. Indiana, Oladipo underperformed last time. His price still very solid. Domantas Sabonis should pick up a few more minutes, I would presume, and you could confirm this or not. With TJ Leaf being out, Miles Turner, his breakout season has begun to look exactly the same way as Miles Turner has performance-wise, but he looked really jacked, so that's pretty good. I don't know. I'm intrigued by this game.
His Instagram videos were very solid over the summer, yes.
yeah. I saw an article on Hoops Hype where he been doing yoga and he stopped eating carbs, so he's killing it. He's ready.
He's a beast there. So yeah, I don't have what ends up being a ton of interest in these games. These two teams hit the under a lot. Obviously, we have coaching changes. We have some different positional players. Sure, this can not necessarily go exactly as how we might like it. I don't know if Sabonis picks up additional time. If he does, generally it's got to come at the expense of Miles Turner because they've said pretty repeatedly that they don't want to play those two guys next to each other. They talked about trying to do it all last year. They're like, yeah, I think we're gonna try to play those guys next to each other. And didn't. They played 1 minute next to each other in the entire preseason. I think they played 2 minutes next to each other in the season opener. So you're gonna have a lot of shit games where you're trying to pick between those guys, and they're going to play 48 to 51 combined minutes. That makes it really hard to make them useful. So you're going to have other guys enter into the rotation here where you'll get more time out of guys like Sumner. They're going to run small a little bit. Thad's going to pick up a couple minutes. Maybe you get some O'Quinn out there who we didn't necessarily expect, but I'm dubious in getting on Sabonis. And again, he's not that cheap. 5,600 on FanDuel's a little bit exciting. 5,900 on DK. Guy has all the upside in the world, but I would definitely take the under on 30 minutes out of Donatas Sabonis tonight, for example.
One thing I noticed, which jumped out to me, the last time that the Pacers and Milwaukee played, Oladipo posted a 44% usage rate.
Yep.
I didn't have a great game, but just went nuts. And I think he loves these dick measuring games. Like I've always gotten that sense with him where he's one of those guys where if he's going to get somebody who he perceives to be in the same tier as him, he's going to go extra hard. And I
Yeah.
think for him, if you're getting him
Oladipo, much
5%,
bigger fan on FanDuel, where his price actually decreased after a shit opening game. DK is probably increased, again, one of a few guys who are priced proportionately there, but not a matchup I'm super thrilled with, and there are just a lot of other plays at position and at price I like a little bit more. You're always going to be able to play Victor Oladipo in a tournament if you want, but, you know, he needs to hit that steal block upside. Slightly disinclined towards. I do think having Tyreek there, where it really eviscerates, you know, Darren Collison's usage in production, is going to hurt Oladipo's a little bit as well. So I'm more disinclined than inclined towards playing Oladipo. Let me look at FanDuel punts.
yeah.
I did a good rundown yesterday, and people are saying, hey, could you do that again? So real quick, by position, I don't hate punting center tonight. There are a couple decent plays I like, though, but it's not completely insane. I'm pretty sure that's going to be basically Tristan Thompson, but I'm giving it one more quick look, bottom to top. You could Aaron Baines, you could Boban. Those would be the choices. In a tournament, you could Nerlens Noel. People have asked about Gorgie Jang. Gorgie Jang's solidity came from pardon me, Karl Anthony Towns fouling out in 22 minutes. That's going to be an infrequent occurrence. In the regular season, it's hard to Gorgie. You know, you could also Jordan Bell in that spot. Looking at power forward real quick. Again, you have guys like Mirotic and Tatum who are priced fairly, so I'm a little more inclined to pay up there. Harry Giles III is probably my guy, even stating that he's probably going to play 10 minutes and get 12 fantasy points. It's the fastest game in the world, and it's not impossible. The Pellies blow them out, and there's just ways that happen. And none of the other cheap guys look really sexy to me. Don't play him. Don't play him. Really don't play him. Marvin Bagley at 4K, exact same theory, and probably a better likelihood of minutes. And then Kevon Looney at 4.1 would be your cashy. I'm punting that position. Small forward, again, you have Bielitz at 5K, so it's if you're running him in a punt, if you're not running Paul George. Sam Decker is probably going to play 24 minutes again. Not thrilled with it, but we really like that matchup. Yes, everyone. I know you have 100 questions I haven't answered. I'm going to answer as many as I can. Please.
Yeah, we'll speed round right after this, guys. So drop your questions in the YouTube chat or the Slack premium chat right now.
Yeah, so there's the punts there are all pretty bad, and I would be disinclined towards playing them. But it would be Darius Miller in tournaments. You could also CJ Miles. Cash, believe it or not, would be Sam Decker if for some reason you were cash punting there. I think shooting guard. I know Alec Burks is 4,100. I like what can happen with him at that price. You can play Frank Jackson and hope for the blowout, but again, you're very likely looking at a zero there. You can play Hamidou Diallo or one of those guys, but I don't want to. Someone asked about Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot. He was out of the rotation for the first game, so I'm not going to do that under any circumstances. Dante DiVincenzo played 22 minutes in cash. I can see doing that. Not insane in tournaments. Frank Mason in tournaments at 3,700 makes some sense. Alonzo Trier at 3,900 makes some sense. And point guard, just a minute ago, we referred to. I want to make sure I get this right. You could Quinn Cook in tournaments. Ray Felton is now back in play at 3,600 for punts, and Yogi Ferrell at 3,900 is probably the best one by far. If you're moving past that, it's then Derrick Rose and Kojo, and Dante Exum at 4.0, 4.2, and 4.3.
One question on YouTube, which I think is worth hitting real fast. Samuel James Perry saying favorite GPP play on DK under 4K at util. For me, under 4K, that'd probably be Garrett Temple. I think he's the one guy who jumped off to me. Eddie, who are the super cheap guys on DK who'd go with at a utility?
Jordan Bell in tournaments I like a lot. Let me look at a couple guys here, make sure I don't miss anyone I'm a big fan of. But utility 4K. Trier, I remember mentioning at I think he's 34, so we don't want to go down quite that far. Yogi Ferrell is going to be my favorite guy there at 4K.
Yeah. If it's under 4K, it's simple. If it's at 4K, it's Ferrell for me too.
And Boban is not incredibly out of play in this conversation.
Also fair. Can you rank
3.9.
Trier, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Corey Joseph, and Derek Rose for a DK GPP for Kenneth in the premium Slack?
I'm sorry, repeat from the top. I got some
Trier, Gilgeous-Alexander, Corey Joseph, and Derek Rose.
pick one for a tournament.
Yeah, or, he wants you to rank them, but I don't know why you'd play those back three guys, really.
Trier, Gilgeous-Alexander, Rose, and
Corey Joseph.
Yeah, don't play Corey Joseph. I would probably rank them Trier, Rose, Gilgeous-Alexander for tournaments.
Cantor or Love for cash?
Cantor.
I would probably also go Cantor, but I love Love.
Yeah.
Grant or Urson for cash on FanDuel?
For cash, Urson.
Knicks might run Cantor out more with Hornacek on. He's been getting a ton of run SJM in the preseason. Eddie, you're okay with Cantor, I guess, overall tonight?
Yeah, I'm okay with Cantor in any format in which you want to play in a scanner.
Grant or Yogi Ferrell? Who would you go with?
Yogi Ferrell. Yogi Ferrell could very possibly play 30 minutes and score like 34 fantasy. I mean, like he has a very, very solid upside here, and most guys do not. By the way, the $4 on DK is not going to fill. Like it will overlay. Not only will it not fill, it will not get in. Right now it's taking in about $390,000. It's going to pay out about $400,000. So throwing some extra entries in there makes some sense. Rarely do you get overlay in the main event like that on DraftKings, but you've got it today.
Yeah, and it's a max 20 too. So you do have a realistic shot at entering that, even if you're not outlaying a ton of cash.
Yeah.
Grant and Drew Holiday or Yogi Ferrell and Tobias Harris?
Ferrell and Harris.
Are you okay with Damian Jones in cash?
On DK, yes. If that's where you're asking. On FanDuel, not so much. But DraftKings, I'm fine with it.
Do you think Giles will get more minutes tonight for Sacramento?
Yes, I will take the over on 10, which is what he got last time. Probably not enough to be usable, but possibly. Sabonis or Ibaka in a FanDuel GPP. I would take Ibaka. He was actually pretty good against Boston with the time they saw against each other last year. So I would actually go with that, I think. Yeah.
Jared Allen or Domantas Sabonis on DK?
Jared Allen.
Shelvin Mack or Alonzo Trier?
Alonzo Trier, not close for me. Shelvin Mack is going to get less minutes. I don't know how many less, but there's no way he's going to be a consistent 30-minute part of the damn rotation. I understand loving that matchup, but it's Shelvin Mack. It's the same thing as people are like, what about Pat in this matchup? What about Dorian Finney-Smith? Just don't play those players. Just don't do it.
Dorian Finney-Smith wasn't bad, by the way.
Yes, he got lucky. He got 6 times his average block rate, or 8 times, to pick up 3 blocks in his 20 minutes, and I think ended up just short of 20 fantasy points. Which
no, he got over. He got over.
Did he got like 21? Okay, but like,
yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that was your 90% positive result. Like that was
oh my god, I got there,
and that's what you got there with. Like, I'm not saying I won't ever be wrong. You can play Shelvin Mack in this matchup, and he's not as bad as some of those other guys we're talking about. But there's a real possibility that just the minutes aren't there this time. They have, again, 5 quality guards and instead are giving all their time to Garrett Temple and Shelvin Mack. I'm not sure that keeps up. So on a 1-game sample, I just don't want to risk 14 minutes of Shelvin Mack tonight. And I do think that's really possible.
Yeah, that's fair. Just want to point out, Dorian Finney-Smith, whenever Harrison Barnes is out, you lock that guy in for 4x and you don't think about it. It's just, that's the Dorian Finney-Smith life. Do you Adams or Cantor for DFS stupidity in the premium Slack?
Cantor. Cash or tournaments for me, by the way. Like I like Adams. I think he's a fine play. He's probably the second best cash play on a couple sites. But Cantor, I have no reason to think won't be just very, very good in this spot. So, I'd say he outscores Steven Adams at least 2 times out of 3 in these spots. And I like Steven Adams' matchup. But Cantor I'd project for 41, and I'd project Steven Adams for 33. I mean, it is a tier above for me.
Damian Jones or Ed Davis in cash?
Cash is Damian Jones. You can't add Davis in cash. You can make that pivot in tournaments. I think that's fine. The matchup is solid. You hope you randomly pick up some fouls on Jared Allen, and you see Ed Davis doing wonderful, amazing things. But, yeah, cash, you have to play the big D.
Any love for Jared Dudley on this slate?
No. Again, still having RHJ out, I can see doing it. But again, Jared Dudley is falling into that Dorian Finney-Smith Crab not starting. Is he in play at 4.2? Dudley, is that who we're referring to? Sorry, another message came out concurrently with our conversation.
No, I guess Crab is not starting, is what Kawhisenberg is saying. I haven't seen that news come through yet.
I have not seen a Nets lineup. So would who be? What? I guess I'll just go to the chat and see who's.
Yeah, it's Russell, LeVert, Harris, Dudley, Allen, according to some things I'm seeing on Twitter. I don't know if that's credible.
Well, Harris, I have a lot of interest in. Is that a 7 or is that the 7 game or is it the 7:30?
I believe it's 7:30.
It's the 7:30. They do tend to play those teams at 7:30. Let's look at the ownership in the 7 o'clock game and then talk about some late swap options for a couple minutes here. Because again, if you're playing on DK, the show doesn't really need to stop. One of 9 games has started. Which annoys the shit out of me. 17% Malik Monk. I'm fine with that. 15% Kemba. I'd be excited to get Kemba at 15 here. Aaron Gordon at 11. I'd be excited for Aaron Gordon at 11. Fournier, 10.7. Please don't Google his name. Terrence Ross, 4.48%. You know why that's funny? That Terrence Ross is 4.48% owned? Because he got 4 4s in his stat line in the first game. He randomly put up 30-odd fantasy points because he had 4 steals, 4 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds. Today,
did he have a bunch of blocks too?
Maybe it was 4 blocks. I
think it was 4 blocks. Yeah, because he was really happy about 1 block he got.
I think it might be 4 blocks. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It was blocks. Right. It's 4 blocks, 2 steals, 4 assists, 4 points, 4 rebounds. Which he's a decent steals guy. That's fine. The assists and the rebounds, those are tolerable. But only 4 points makes it kind of funny. And 4 blocks, I'm guessing was a career high. I'm gonna throw that out there as a guess. Mo Bamba at 3.5%. I don't mind that. Better on FanDuel because again he does steely blocky stuff. 2.5%. Vooch is 1.9%. I'm pretty excited about Vooch at 1.9%. Like 2%, he's a quality dude. Like the minutes were very scary last time. Only getting 28 minutes out of Vooch really concerns me, and I think it's probably gonna continue. But still, 1.9% on a night where the centers aren't that great. I would have. If I were playing and looking at this right now, I'd be like,
that second unit of young guys too came out so spry. I think that did affect the minutes a little bit. Like Bamba was all over the place. Ross was all over the place blocking shots. Like I think it was hard for Clifford to take those guys off the court.
Yep.
I think Vucevic gets back above 30 tonight.
I think that's an absolutely fair take. So Jeremy Lamb under a 1%. I'd like Jeremy Lamb in this game under 1%. Pretty excited about that. Cody Zeller at 1%. I like Cody Zeller at 1%. Like that works for me. So, yeah.
The 1% is all me if you're on DK right now.
let's keep going and take some questions from people who are like playing on DK because there's obviously a massive slate. Yeah. We didn't get on until 57 minutes, 55 minutes before it started. And if people are still watching, let's handle questions until they run dry if you got the time.
Sure. Let's go. If YouTubers drop some more questions in there we didn't get to you guys enough, because obviously we mentioned we do prioritize the premium Slack first, just the way it's got to be. But drop them in both. We are paying attention to all the streams. For the premium Slack, would you go Giles and Steven Adams or Boban and Mirotic?
It's a little bit site dependent, but just raw points: Boban and Steven Adams or Mirotic and Giles. Or no, sorry,
Giles and Adams and Boban and Mirotic.
I got to take Boban and Mirotic.
I think that's probably what I would agree with too. I don't see the Giles minutes coming tonight at enough volume.
Yeah, like I'd love Giles to work out. I really think he has a tremendous game. If you gave him 20 minutes in this game, I'd project him for like 27 fantasy points. He's really, really good, and this game is going to go 650 miles an hour. Like I'm really excited, but he got 10 minutes last game. I can't successfully guess he's going to do a hell of a lot more than that. So I can't, really take him in any pairing against 2 reasonable players. And again, if he wants to play Boban every goddamn day, how many minutes does Boban need until he's better than Giles? Like, I'll probably take 10 minutes of Boban over, 14 minutes of Giles. And last game, Boban played 18. So if that's even a remote possibility, yeah, I'd have to go with that second one. And plus, Mirotic, I like more than Adams, just raw points as well. So pretty much the second one for me.
Would you go Trae Young or Elfrid Payton for Captain Jenks in the YouTube chat? Also for a DK tournament is that question.
Well, all right. So for a tournament, depending on how cashy the rest of your lineup is, I would play Trae Young. Like, and again, I'm a big Elfrid fan and was, tooting before the first game. And I honestly think it was a pretty massive oversight by other people that he was 9% owned or whatever on that team in this matchup. But I really like Elfrid Payton this year. They are talking him the hell up. And he went out and put up the triple-double. And on the show, I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see a triple-double here. And then he went out and put up exactly a triple-double. I think he literally put up 10-10-10, by the way. Like, he literally bottomed the barrel.
He did.
But
Just got there by the skin of his teeth.
The old Ricky Rubio, Ray Felton. There's a few guys out there who specialize in that 10-10-10.
The TJ McConnell is what I would call that.
TJ McConnell, yeah. Very, very nice callback. But he is going to be much higher owned today, as everyone is, the entire industry is talking about the speed of this team and the blah, 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 and the matchup with the Kings. So you're going to get 37% owned Elfrid Payton as opposed to the 9 we had last time. And you're going to get 8% or 6% on Trae Young. So in a tournament, whereas I would project him raw for several fantasy points less, like 8 or 10, I would probably rather play Trae Young if I'm building one lineup and if the rest of my lineup contains a fair amount of cash. Like, I like making pivots like that for the ownership, and I do think he outscores Elfrid Payton 35% of the time or so. So, like, it really could work out. It's a fine matchup for him as well, even though the pace isn't near what it's going to be there. But, Trae Young is also going to play, 33 minutes and maybe more. And, he has a 20-point, 12-assist game in him tonight very easily, quite possibly. So would not shock me to randomly see 40 out of Trae Young tonight. So he is still just underpriced. He is going to cost closer to $7,000 soon.
Would you consider going to Vonleh instead of Crab with the news that Crab is not starting?
Yes, I have no issue with that. Vonleh has been really productive. I would rather do it on FanDuel where I can possibly drop it. But you're not doing it on FanDuel when you're talking about making that swap, I presume. Although they might both be forward eligible on DK. It's an interesting question. But yeah, with Crab not starting, just Crab being back gives me some more concern for those guys. But they love to throw all the minutes in the world they can at Joe Harris. So I think I'd be slightly more comfortable playing Vonleh at this point. But I really don't want to play either of those guys if I can get away from it. I would rather play Joe Harris than either of those guys.
Do you think Jaren Jackson Jr. is a good play for GPPs on DK tonight?
Yes.
That's
one word answer. Yes, I think $4,600 Jaren Jackson is an exciting play, and I think that game is an 8 o'clock game, so we may get news soon. I want to say Memphis was at 8.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so we may pick up some news there.
Damian Jones, Gilgeous Alexander, Corey Joseph, and Grant. Could you rank those guys for a GPP on DK for Sir Legend on the premium Slack?
Jones, Joseph, Grant. I got to assume both Jeremy and Jarian are playing today. So did he specify which one? I believe
I would I would assume Jarian, but he's got a lot of weird positions there, so maybe not.
Yeah, let me go take a look because I thought Jarian or Jeremy. Okay. Okay, based on those prices, I assume he was talking about the Oklahoma City Grant. So I would play the Oklahoma City Grant at this point right now.
Do you think Elfrid would continue to take away from Drew? It seems hard for them to coexist and hit their ceilings. That's a thing I think, C. D'Agostino. But Eddie, what do you think about that?
Well, a couple things. One, I think the overall ceiling of the team is higher. Which is important to understand as a concept. Like, if you take last year's team before DeMarcus goes down and you take out Rondo and put in Elfrid Payton, does that net take away from Drew Holiday? I do think it does a little bit, but I think with all the changes in the team is a full step faster, and I do think Elfrid Payton makes the whole team more efficient. So it's going to take away from his scoring, and it's going to take away from his volume a little bit. But I would expect his efficiency to improve a hair. And between that and the pace, I'm not overly concerned. So, yes, as the simple answer to your question, but it doesn't really translate to a ton of concern for me. I do think he is 2 or 3% less valuable than he would have been in a vacuum the other way. But not so much that I'm like, oh, I don't want to play this guy. So still $7,200 Drew Holiday, especially, by the way, if I am not playing Elfrid Payton, has a lot of appeal for me still.
Yeah, I agree. I think we saw them coexist last year with Rondo. I mean, playing a similar role. I think they're a little more invested in the success and growth of Elfrid Payton, and obviously they were Rondo. Yeah. So I think it does make it interesting. But yeah, I think both guys will have value, but I do think it's going to be tough to find them both having crazy value on the same nights.
Randall is in. Piece of news.
Sorry, what?
Randle is in. Julius Randle is,
okay. Good.
Is
So
available to play, which I think was expected, but he's there.
Well, since he's in, Randall, Mirotic, Drew, pick one for cash for your boy Rinpack.
Good question. I still have to take Mirotic for cash. That was easy. He's going to be the highest owned, but I would project him as the highest of those three guys pretty easily. I think he's getting a little bit of interest. In tournaments now, though, I think now I like a pivot to Randall over Drew Holiday.
If Gasol is out, would you move to Adams for Mr. Profit on YouTube?
If Gasol is out, would I move to Adams? If you were playing Gasol and he is now out, and you can pivot to Adams, that is a fine pivot. Yeah, where they're both in the high sixes, so I can see that. If you can get to Cantor again, I would prefer that, but I don't believe you can. He's like 74 on DK or something, so that's like an extra $500 you probably don't have. So yeah, I think Adams is a perfectly equitable fit off him. Now that being said, that's using DFS the way that's using late swap the way most people do, and that's an excellent way to lose money if you're playing on a site that has late swap. You should be more interested in making the swap. Like, you obviously have to get Marc Gasol out, but you should be more interested in making the swap to getting Triple J in there and getting JaMychal Green in there and taking advantage of the situation, not just replacing injured dude with other dude. But yeah, I think Steven Adams is a perfectly fine move.
Another if Gasol is out. If Gasol is out, would you find Green and Jaren Jackson to both be locks? Green for me definitely would be. Green has been stellar whenever Gasol is out. I love Green whenever Gasol isn't available.
For cash, I'd prefer Green. For tournaments, I'd prefer Jackson. In neither situation would I consider them a lock on what I consider a pretty dysfunctional team. I would rank my interest in plays if we get news that Marc Gasol won't play and no other news coming with it. In order, the things I would want to do on DraftKings and tournament would be to get Jackson in, then to get Conley in. And then the third most exciting thing for me would be to get JaMychal Green in. That's just how I rank those things. Like Conley, I would try to turn my Kyries into Conleys in a hurry. I would try to turn my Drew Holidays into Conleys. I would try to do things of that nature. I think the ownership on Conley will still be stellar in that instance versus the kind of game you could get out of him in this tremendous matchup. So don't mind JaMychal Green at all, but I would put him third on the list of guys I'm trying to pile in there. So none of them would be locks for me, and I would prioritize them in that order. I would want to get Jackson and then Conley, then Green.
It's still great for me. Lock him in.
Yeah, no,
how would you?
I'm not. By no means is Green a bad play. He has a more limited upside. He's not as good in a game that I expect to have a lot of pace with Taurean Prince and Trae Young out there running all day, and I don't know how well they can.
I think you're underselling Green. Green's good, man.
Green's not good. If you're in a vacuum, JaMychal Green is not a good basketball player. He's fine.
I think that's Look at his numbers without Gasol. He's been really he can assist, like he can shoot threes.
Without Gasol, it's like, yes, when you make him the starting center and take away the veteran on the team with the most usage, and sure, like everybody's
but that's
good
what he would
when
do in
they
this
get
matchup versus Atlanta. So that's like the most lock JaMychal.
I think JaMychal is perfectly reasonable. Like I like JaMychal a lot, but I have well less upside than the other two guys, and I'm swapping in tournaments. If
Gasol is out, we're gonna revisit this because I like JaMychal is one of my dudes who people are never on when Gasol is out, and I always put him in like 50%, and it's always been profitable for me. He's my dude.
I will wowie this and look a little bit more, and I think he's the most obvious pivot. And again, in my touting career over the last 3 years, several times I've said, "Oh, Marc Gasol has outplayed JaMychal Green," but in this world that we're in now, and with the team they're opposing, yeah, I would be much more excited about the other two guys first.
Fair. He will wow you if Gasol is out. But mark my words.
I have seen him play no less than 150 minutes of basketball without Marc Gasol on the court. Like I know exactly to whom we are referring.
He will wow you. He will wow your pants off.
I am prepared to be wowed.
Pantsless at how wowed you will be.
I will be ready to take my pants off when we get news that he is not when Gasol is not in.
A question from Sheed on the premium Slack. How do you approach the 8 o'clock 4-game express on DK? I don't know what games are in that, but you might.
I don't offhand, but I'm happy to do the legwork and take a look here. I'm a full
Yeah,
service.
let's see. I'll try to see if I can pull it up fast.
No, it's fine. It's the 4 p.m., 8 o'clock game, and the question regarding it was just, is there anyone...
Just how to approach it. Yeah, it's Cleveland at Minnesota, Atlanta at Memphis, Boston at Toronto, and Sacramento at New Orleans.
All right, I have opened up a draft lobby here. Yeah, I mean, you have the Sacramento-New Orleans game on there, so, and the Atlanta... I mean, it's a really nice slate. Like, I really like 3 of these 4 games. I'd play almost no one from Boston and Toronto. If you're playing cash, you want to play Kawhi Leonard, sure, have yourself a good time. You know, if you want to Marcus Morris in a tournament or play some, I don't know, play some Tatum, you know, get a little Tatum in your life, I guess that's fine, but I'm much more excited about the other 3 games here. Cleveland and Minnesota have given no inclination to think that anyone in that game is ever going to play any defense. So Butler at 8.1, your guy Kevin Love I like a bit less at 8, Karl-Anthony Towns at 9.1, you know, pretty exciting for me. Chetty Osman at 5.4, obviously we've talked about.
You know who's crushing right now? Vucevic at 2% in the $4.
Yeah. Yeah.
10.5 points in 3 minutes.
Yeah, there's like, he's a really good, like, he's just one of those guys. 1%, I'll take him. Like, they're just...
You know who's not crushing? Kemba Walker.
We're like 3 minutes in, right? Or how much time's on the clock?
Yeah, I know. I just hate seeing that 0 from Kemba. I feel like whenever Kemba doesn't get going fast, it's always a tough Kemba game.
Yes, right now I'm looking at his stat line. It says minutes 2. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of other, you know, things to say about this slate. Most of the analysis from the first slate carries over here a bit. Basically, wait on Memphis news, which Memphis is an 8 p.m. game. All 4 of those games are 8 p.m. games, actually. Yeah, it's just a straight 8 p.m. There's no late games in that slate. Wait for Memphis news and be ready to play definitely Jackson and definitely Conley, JaMychal Green if you really have to.
Kings lineup is out. It is Fox, Farrell, Hield, Bielitsa, and Cauley-Stein again.
They're sticking to their guns.
Mm-hmm. Bielitsa.
That's the same one, yeah. So Bjelica, get some Bjelica in your life. Play yourself some Yogi Ferrell. Play any of those guys, except for Willie Cauley-Stein for me. Like we will see. I'm gonna go 3 for 3. I'm gonna throw out Willie Cauley-Stein under 30 fantasy points, which on a slate like this would make you not want him. So
that was a fair one after Capella got mostly limited to nothing and looked shell-shocked after getting swap blocked by Anthony Davis.
Okay, he's an absolute goddamn monster. Like lineup notes, Kings will start these guys pants off. Yeah, that's the appropriate reaction. Kevin Knox or Jaren Jackson, DK, GPP. For me right now, it would already be Jaren Jackson.
For trifecta on the premium Slack, would you rank your Kings players in order of point for $1? A lot of math on that one.
Would you be so kind, trifecta, as to provide me with a site upon which I guess it has to be DK really at this point? That would be odd for it to be anything else.
He's a completist for FanDuel lineups.
There's late slates. I would give me.
Yeah, no, it's true.
He could mean in points per dollar. Okay, let me give me a minute here. This is gonna take a second. So I now have to look at every player in the team, cogitate and compute, and then come back to you at points per dollar. Like it might be Waylon Gabriel at 3K. Just points per dollar, which shouldn't be how you build lineups, by the way. Just for what it's worth. Because all dollars are not created equal. Every side has a tax, okay? Yogi Ferrell really costs you $1,000 because everyone costs you $3,000. So doing math counting that $3,000 is completely asinine. It doesn't make any sense. It's like walking into a store where they tell you every time you buy an item, you have to pay us $5. Well, then the items that are $1 are not 1/10 the price of the $10 items because those cost you $6 and the $10 items cost you $15. So they would more accurately be 40% that price, and that's the way you have to look at it. So points per dollar, generally a shitty answer to anything. That being said, I'd be happy to answer your question. I will go with points per dollar.
That was the best preamble ever. I enjoyed that.
Sorry, it's just people spend millions of hours on this, and you see these really guys who put billions of hours into projections, and then they use things like, here's my value rankings point per dollar, and that's the dumbest ass way to do value rankings. And then here's my guys I think get the most points. This guy's gonna get 6x, and this guy's gonna get 7x. X's are not all created the same. If you're playing on DK tonight, and you're playing a guy who costs 3K, you want/need 8x out of him to be happy. You really need 24 out of that guy until you're going to be happy playing, because there are going to be punts between 3, 4, 5K who hit that number. There's going to be guys who cost 4K who get 30, guys who cost 5K who get 40. But if you're playing Anthony Davis tonight, you do not want or need 8x out of him. You do not want or need 92.8 fantasy points. I think that would be out of Anthony Davis. You're fine with 75. So there is a sliding scale there. So it's really funny. It's like when people play Jeopardy and you see the smartest people in the world who fail at the basic addition part of it. Where they get down to there and like, I'll wager this much money. Wow, you dumb fuck. It's amazing that you knew the third largest city in Mongolia, but you were unable to correctly figure out this basic algebra with exactly 3 variables. I'm done now, but okay. Sorry, what was I doing? I was talking about the points per dollar of the Sacramento Kings. I will go with, in order, point per dollar, Bielitsa, Fox, Farrell, Heald.
Okay, that seems fair. I like Bielitsa being high up there. That's what I'm caring about.
I'll go Bielitsa, Fox, Farrell, Heald. I guess Cauley Stein.
He makes the chart, just not at a higher ranking. Number 7.
There. I mean, honestly, like if I really, I'd rather go back and look at the bench minutes those guys played and see if I could safely project anyone to play reasonable time off the bench. But like they played Shumpert time, and Frank didn't play, and Justin Jackson got a pile off the bench. He's an eyesore, but you got to like him in this matchup. So I would probably have Justin Jackson higher points per dollar than Willie Cauley-Stein. Like he'd probably be my number 5, honestly. Would
you go Love or Kawhi for DK?
Kawhi and Cash. I think Love in tournaments is a great pivot.
That's how I feel too. What do you think of Siakam? Windhorse has been pumping him up for Darren in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, just not this matchup. Like I love Pascal. For those if you weren't here for the preseason, there was one day in which we were like, he's gonna be the ultimate play because there were various guys resting and everything, and he was 22% owned, but we had like 75% through everyone in our channel, and yeah, he absolutely demolished. I love him. Now you've got Kawhi taking a shot every 90 seconds, and Lowry knows good. Like I just don't see the usage necessarily coming for him. So I love Pascal as a player. I don't particularly look at this as the best matchup. Pelicans will start who we thought they would. They are who we thought they were. Peyton Holiday, Moore, Miro, and Brow.
For Bear Be Easy, would you go Alex Len and Alec Burks, or Peyton and Alonzo Trier on DK?
I think barely, believe it or not, Peyton and Trier and Cash. I would go on the Burks side for tournaments, I think.
You think Burks gets minutes?
Elfrid Payton is not a consistent player. Elfrid Payton is through the course of his career. Now, nothing helps consistency more than pace. Like, the more, incidents that come, the closer you will get to true value. It's just like flipping a coin. If you flip a coin 3 times or 7 times or 13 times or 29 times, the odds on being at 50-50 or as close to 50-50 in an odd number of incidents as you can be are pretty small. But if you flip that coin 1 million times, you're going to end up with very, very close to 50% heads and 50% tails. Just the more usage, the more incidents, you get a more true scientific method. So playing 1 billion miles an hour actually makes it more consistent. But, Elf has found ways to not show up in the past in lots of really cherry spots. So he's a guy I don't mind moving away from in tournaments.
Would you go Bielitsa and Durant or Prince and Love?
The former in Cash and the latter in tournaments.
Interesting. Yeah, okay, that's fair. I think they're both tournament viable though, but yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I don't mind playing. Anytime I say play, there's nothing I'll ever say play that in Cash. Well, I won't say that. There are rare guys I'll be like, don't play him in tournaments, but he's okay in Cash. And they're almost always value guys. Like, there's very rare guys who are vaguely expensive and are okay to play in Cash, where I'd be like, yeah, don't play him in a tournament. It's very strange to have someone who costs, 6K who can't hit an upside. So Knicks will start, same lineup again. Burke, Hardaway, Ntilikina, Lance at the 4, and Cantor.
Trey Burke day. Time to redeem yourself, Trey Burke.
It will happen at some point. Like if he continues to get the starts, and again, this is a perfectly fine spot. So yeah, by all means, like Trey Burke is just fine in tournaments.
Would you have the same thoughts about Pascal if he's the absolute minimum price on Yahoo?
That's a fair point. Yes, because of the other guys who are at the absolute minimum price on Yahoo. Like he's probably the exact same position as Nemanja Bjelica. I'll take Bjelica. Other guys who were the see if I have my notes from earlier today where I looked at Yahoo. Chetty is $10 there, so I'll take Chetty Osman over him in this game. Let's see, Jared Allen was 12, Len was 13. So there, I mean, there's just exceptional value there. So, do I think Pascal is playable in a tournament at $10? Sure, but like, do I like him? No, I'd be several tournament lineups in before I necessarily went there. So.
Gasol is in accordance to Don't Embiid, my status in the premium Slack. Thank you for chiming in on that. So nice. We will not settle our JaMychal Green blood war tonight, unfortunately.
Which is a shame, because I was looking forward to that. I enjoy on air. Like, I've done plenty of $20 bets. Loser pays to charity of the winner's choice. I've gotten a lot of people to donate to, donkey rescues and gay men's choir of.
Josh and my thing has been Chick-fil-A bets that we've been doing since we started, where we'll make a bet for a Chick-fil-A dinner if it goes right or wrong.
That's sweet. That's sweet. So Gasol is in, yeah. So all this, that would have been really exciting. Like, that would have been a spot where the team could have made some money. So I'm disappointed we didn't get what we were hoping for, because definitely like some Conley exposure there would have been pretty sexy for me. But yeah, basically everything's off now. You can still play Gasol. You probably get Gasol at a pretty nice ownership at this point. So I like in tournaments a Marc Gasol play quite a bit now. Very rarely are guys questionable play and then get yanked after like 5 minutes. So
yeah, it's not like baseball with the late scratches are often a common thing. If you were playing MLB with us all year, for Hunter M in the YouTube chat, Trae Young or Lou Williams, who would you go with?
I'd play Trae Young. Like, Lou Williams, I think plays 24 minutes. Trae Young, I think plays 34 minutes. Same number of minutes. I'll take Lou in a equally as good game, but yeah, I'll take Trae Young there. Like, Lou is still artificially inflated from last year, where they gave him infinite time and everybody got hurt and he played 35 minutes and took a gabillion shots. Like, he's got to come down a little more. The price is still fine for him. It's fair, but like, Trae Young's price is unfair. It is unreasonably low at the moment. So.
Patterson or Felton, who'd be a better GPP play for you on DK?
By the way, Kemba, the scoring is busted in that game. I just want to point out, like, there's everywhere.
Not on DK.
Like, I'm on I don't know on DK, but like, I'm on ESPN right now and looking at the box score for that game. No one has played more than 2 minutes, and there's 4 minutes on the clock. So something is going squirrely there. I don't know what's going on DK with.
DK's lineups I think are right. They've got guys at 8 minutes, 6 to 6.
Well, what does Kemba got?
Kemba has 6 points right now. Nicholas Batum is the high scorer for them, 12.75 points.
Really?
So,
good on him.
And I got one lineup with Batum and Vucevic. So let's go those guys.
Okay. Apparently Vuce came out early for Bamba though.
Oh, cocksucker!
I know.
Bamba's so good too. He's just gonna take his role. It's very upsetting. I love Vuce.
It's like this I can accept because Bamba is 19 years old and exceptional and could develop into a really, really good player. When it was happening for Bismack Biyombo, it got my goat. I was just like, what's the fucking plan? Like, it's the same thing with, like, who we really need to see tonight? Zach Randolph. So I think that guy's going places. I think he's the modern face of the NBA, and it's just like, I think you can let him sit down and play some of the kids now. It's late March. You're 47 games out of first place. He's played 27 minutes. And you got several young bigs on the bench who could either, I don't know, learn and get better or increase their trade value. But I'm glad we want to get Zebo his workout, but maybe we could, this is that sort of thing. I just didn't get it with Biyombo. I'm like, okay.
Trade Vooch to a contender, please. Like, he's so good and nobody appreciates him. And I only know him because of fantasy. I watch so many fucking Magic games. I love Vooch.
Yeah, he's really good. And his defense has gotten better. Like, he was a legitimately bad defender. Like, he was a guy I used to target a lot, and still, with Whiteside we went there. But I've been watching him. His off-the-ball movement and his defense are significantly improved versus past years. So, and he deserves a tip of the cap for that excellent work.
Will you still like Jaren Jackson Jr. and GPPs with Gasol in?
He's still playable. Like is an interesting way to phrase it. The matchup is still ideal. There's a chance of a blowout either way because there's so many variables here. It's really tough to. But I have no issue with $4,600 Jaren Jackson in tournaments now. If Gasol was out, I would have been legitimately a very big fan. Now I'm like, he's in the pool and good. I would never look at a lineup with him and be like, oh, that's bad. But he'd be mired with 30 other guys in my 10th to 40th favorite tournament plays.
PG-13. We should probably wrap up soon. I feel like we've wasted enough of these people's time with our information and help and love.
Are you sure?
PG-13 and Damian Jones, or I'll finish this one. PG-13, Damian Jones, or Drew and Chetty in a cash game for Jonathan Sullivan in the premium Slack.
PG-13 and Damian Jones.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Though the ownership on Drew might be high according to our projections. I don't know.
Yeah, and I've never, like, people say that a lot. You said cash. I don't care what the ownership is.
Really? Okay. I'm not a big cash player.
Unless, I guess I care what the ownership is when I'm not playing a guy. So if I look at Drew Holiday and think, wow, he's going to be heavily owned in cash, and I think he's going to get 57 here, yeah, okay, I guess that would be concerned. I don't want to punt the entire evening on that play. But, you know, I would have him prioritized under Paul George at his price. I would have him prioritized under, you know, a couple other guys. I'm going to do the ownership for the Knicks Nets game, and then I will let you go since you're wussing out. You don't.
I'm not a wuss. I like smoking weed and hanging out on Fridays.
Okay,
but I can do this.
That's a perfectly. I'm just teasing you. Like that is.
I think Eddie. I'm a 7-day, just like you. I'm a 7-day-a-week worker now with football season and this stuff. So
yeah, that's very, very true. So let me find the what is it, the 400K 4-point play on DK, and we'll look at that Knicks Nets ownership, and then I will let you out of here. Smoke weed every day. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Let's see how much canner there is. I should turn this into a game. I really enjoyed the ownership game. We used to, ending most of the shows at FanVice, I would sit back against the wall, and then they would fire ownership questions at me.
I could see if I could find some on DK. I don't know where my guys are.
I'm already opening. Actually, we'll do it another time, and it's just one game, so it would be a brief and unfulfilling tryst, as my wife likes to say. So, let's see who we got here. Enes Kanter, 14%. Daddy like. Karis LeVert, 13%. Daddy like. Tim Hardaway Jr., 11%. Daddy like. Jared Allen, 10%. Daddy like. Alonzo Trier, 6.7%. Daddy like. Trey Burke, 6%. Daddy like. Alan Crabb, 5.7%. You know, Daddy doesn't like that much. Dinwiddie, 5.6%. Wouldn't do that. Dinwiddie is higher owned than D'Angelo Russell. That's a tragedy. Like, that's talk about being slave to the moment. What are you doing? Like, Dinwiddie can get there, and he's a solid player, but that strikes me as wrong. Vonleh, 5.3. Harris, 4.6. Terrence Ross, 4.48. I know he's in the earlier game. I just wanted to say 4.4 again. Yeah, and yeah, it also has the scores from the early game, and yes, clearly you have Batum, 12.75, and Vooch, 14.5.
Let's go, boys.
And they'll probably let Batum actually play. Yeah, hopefully they get there for you. Kevin Knox, 2%. Daddy like. That's fine. Take that number.
Let's burn through the last step. No new questions. Nobody leave a new fucking question. I swear to God, I'll find
this
you.
Guy with questions. Don't let him
let's see.
Help me. It's an intervention. Get him off the pot. It's reefer madness.
Wiggins or Butler, coming from a Minnesota fan, who would you go with?
Wiggins or Butler?
Mm-hmm.
Butler. Like, wait, one costs $2,000 more and is a strictly better basketball player. Like, I don't know what format in which you're picking one, but Butler. That's right. That's like Anthony Davis or Etuan Moore. Go with Anthony Davis. Like, which one do I like more at their price would also be Butler. Cash or tournaments, he still won't be that highly owned. People react really badly to prices going up a lot quickly. Even like Chetty Osman, who's still a pretty good deal at 5.4K, his ownership is going to be not as high as it should be because people are like, oh, he was just 4. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's hard to avoid that bias, but it is one that creeps in when you play enough DFS. Do you still like Alex Len with Gasol playing now?
Less. I mean, you were certainly hoping it went the other way, but I think he's still... I'd be disinclined to play him in cash now, but he's still cheap with a lot of an upside. It's basically... He's going to be fine unless he gets in foul trouble, which is not impossible. He's a guy who struggles with foul trouble, and Marc Gasol can rack up some fouls on a dude. But I still like him. I still think he's an absolutely fine play in tournaments. You could get 35 minutes out of the guy and still get a monster game out of him. It's just less likely now with Gasol in. But I wouldn't panic if I had Alex Len shares. I'd still feel okay with him.
Robbie P on the premium Slack. Would you go Conley, PG-13, and Fox, or Kyrie, Durant, and Lou Williams?
Kyrie, Durant, and Lou Williams barely. I don't really want to play Lou Williams, but I really don't want to play Conley now. So I guess it might be the... No, I'm going to change my mind. I'm actually going to go with the first side. I'll actually go with the first three. I like that one.
All right. Second to last question. Big Key D Jet. Big Key Jet 70. Boy, I shouldn't say every name. KD and Conley or AD and Jaren Jackson for a DKGPP?
He asked you, not me. I'm just kidding. He tagged you. My name is not there. I'm reading it.
I'm just a vessel for your genius on this, Eddie.
That's you guys are very. I know it's marketing and no one believes it when they say it when I work with them, but you're all very, very kind. KD and Conley or AD and Jaren Jackson. I would play AD and Jaren Jackson. It's really hard for me to get away from Brow. Like, he's just going to get 55 plus like 60% of the time, and that's really hard not to take. I agree with we should call the ownership game Daddy Like from now on. That absolutely should be like, it's time for Daddy Like. Like, that's an excellent suggestion, Kawhi Eisenberg.
All right, and our last question. Who is the stud with the highest FanDuel points of the slate?
Anthony Davis. She said non-Anthony Davis stud is a somewhat interesting question, but Anthony Davis. It's even better on FanDuel because steals and blocks, but Anthony Davis by, I think I'd have projected about 9 higher than Giannis. Give or take.
I think that's probably fair. I would go Giannis just to be contrarian, and because I will tout that guy all year because I think he's just fantastic.
I love him. Last year I first picked him in a fantasy league. This year I second picked him in a fantasy league over James Harden. Like, I'm a gigantic Giannis fan, but like, you know, let's keep it real here. Like, Brow just has the matchup.
All right, that's enough for this week of Live Before Lock shows. Are you, Eddie? You're back tomorrow.
I am. No rest for the wicked.
All right, so Eddie, and it's a solo show, or that's going to be fun.
I believe Engelman is going to do me the courtesy of not making me do the 9-man weekend solo show, and he's going to stop by.
Sweet. Yes. Okay. So Eddie will be back tomorrow doing more games. I'll be back tomorrow in the morning, morning Pacific time, 1:30 Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. On the contrary, tomorrow, me, the boss man, Alex Baker, who's in chat right now on YouTube, probably notices us working real hard, burning that midnight oil on a Friday. I'm sure bonuses on the way. Thanks, boss. We appreciate it in advance. But we'll be back on tomorrow with Alex.
You could get a bonus in the form of a laptop computer.
That would be great. That would be nice if somebody just bought me. Like, I want the fanciest equipment. I'll do webcam porn in here if we want. Like, just give me something that fits all of my needs.
Yeah, we call that ancillary revenue streams. So.
Yeah, that's true. We're growing.
Also, that's what she said.
That was a good one. I cut you off on that. I missed up the timing. My bad. But yeah, Eddie will be back tomorrow with Josh. Make sure to become a premium member of Awesemo.com if you're not. Obviously, all the stuff we reference, all the questions, priority on the premium Slack. If you're on YouTube right now, we are going to there first. We're trying to incorporate everybody as much as we can, but the premium Slack does get first priority. So go sign up now. Get a 1-week trial with promo code LiveBeforeLock on Awesemo.com. You'll get in the mix faster. Get a VIP queue. Any parting words for the folks before we call it a wrap on this business week, Eddie?
Let's win again. It's been really good in the regular season. Preseason was a little disappointing. Not that it wasn't, still a net positive for a lot of people, but the last couple of years it had been ridiculous 80-90% win rates. The regular season has been really good so far. We're on a few consecutive really good days. Had a lot of 4- and 5-digit winners. Last night was really, really solid. So hopefully we continue and keep having the good times roll. A couple of people just crunched the rankings I put out, which had AA rankings on Josh Richardson, Zach LaVine, and that stuff, and that there were good paydays yesterday. So let's keep winning.
Yeah, I had a lot of Josh Richardson. That was fun watching him. That guy. Get on Josh Richardson now, because that dude is going to the next level this year, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I took him in season long as well. He's gonna I got him really late. I got him 80th. He's gonna be a top 50 guy. I'm pretty excited.
So actually, here one last question. We'll close out on this. Mr. Profit 74. So what happened to FanBias? Eddie, what's your side of that story in under 1 minute?
I will take that as a literal question, and the answer would be: we went out of business and sold our assets, and by assets I mean people to FanBias, who assumed some of our staff to keep them together. So it's it's a competitive business. So the longer question of why did we go out of business would be only about half of that could I say reasonably without stepping on somebody's toes. So yeah, we gave it a run for a couple years and moved over to Awesemo. It was a different business plan and one I feel very confident in. So I'm excited to be here and keep most of the band together.
Yeah, and it's been a welcome addition having all these guys here. Again, if you're not subscribed to the channel, tons of great content going up on YouTube. A lot of guys really finding their voice on different shows. I mean, not that I'm talking from a mountaintop, but I think a lot of the shows that we have now are really getting better each day. So make sure to tune in, like all the stuff, watch it, give people a chance.
I want to say, if people are still watching this, I have several people saying they don't have an update on Marc Gasol yet, and that I think specifically they're saying Fantasy Labs or whatever, and I don't know what that is, but apparently Fantasy Labs hasn't confirmed it. That's just two guys tweeting away there, so like I wouldn't overstate that, but apparently, all right, let me point this out here. Rotoworld has a blurb currently saying that he is on the active list. That doesn't mean he's necessarily going to play. He can dress and be an emergency guy, so 17 minutes to lock here. Keep your JaMychal Green, I guess. Ooh. Jared Jackson, Janet Jackson, sure, all the Jacksons, Tito, Jermaine, but also Mike Conley. You know, keep paying attention here, people. And if you're playing Marc Gasol, watch yourself. I don't want to, you know, he is on the active list. Also, by the way, JaMychal Green, not confirmed to be playing. He's probable with a knee issue. Now, if Gasol's out, he's definitely going to play, but just something else to keep in mind there. So definitely keep an eye on Twitter. Mike Wallace is their beat reporter. So yeah, just keep an eye out for the Grizzlies still. We're about 16 minutes from that game. Don't want someone to get screwed.
Apparently Labs says he's in now, like 1 minute ago. So hopefully that solves it.
It came in while I was talking.
Yeah, Marcus, they knew the high priority man needed to know.
They were watching the show, and then like, oh, did we forget to tweet that?
Yeah. Oh shit, we were so enraptured by their great banter.
I still don't see. Yeah, I'm. Hold on a minute. I'm waiting for a damn lineup from someone I can trust. Like, I've got several people saying he's in, he will play. Like, okay, that's all key and everything. I'd really like to see like starting lineup of, because, you know, I'm worried this is all multiple people misinterpreting active. Which, I mean, once you give me active, yeah, I'd say it's now 98% to play and start. But I'm not over this. So we're staying on the air just 1 more minute. So put down the bong, and
I can see it across the.
You're just like, and the worst thing is I'm just sitting here vaping the whole time. Like I'm just teasing you hardly. Okay, I'm ready for an actual lineup. Ready for an actual lineup.
Let's see.
Ready for an actual lineup. All right, I'm making a Twitter alert and loading the tweet deck. I'm going full research mode. Sorry, but we're okay. Active and will start. Okay.
All right.
There we go. We can go on now. We've got active and will start from.
We solved the problem. The great riddle, the Hardy Boys mystery of where will Marc Gasol play on this Friday evening. We got to it.
All right. God. All set now. You may feel free to.
Thank you guys for watching. Good luck tonight. Tune in for all the content this weekend. NFL stuff, tons of NFL stuff. I'll be on shows Saturday and Sunday. Josh and Eddie will be here tomorrow doing some more basketball stuff for you guys to help you win money on the weekend. So yeah, keep it tuned. We appreciate you. We'll see you again soon. Have a good weekend.
Okay.
Cool. That was good. That flowed a lot better, I think, today.
Yeah, didn't. Honestly, it's tough for me because I don't have enough time to do a good take on 9 games with another person in an hour. Now, I want to do it with another person. Me by myself talking for an hour is boring and it's worse, and you have just my opinions, which are always going to be worse than my opinions and your opinions. But like with you setting up and saying some stuff and me bouncing around and taking the occasional question, it's not enough fucking time. So that's the thing where we need 75 minutes for 9 slates. I need 90 minutes for whatever. I think people should watch and we should back it up. But that could be a conversation.
Are we still streaming? We might still be streaming.
Yeah, I haven't shut it off.
Oh, I thought you said we were done.
Yeah, well, we're done. I was fully hoping you were going to
still
smoke up on cam. I was fully hoping you were just going to be out there. I was hoping you were going to produce this 7-foot 3-chambered water bong and just be like, dude, leave me alone. It's my time now. But sadly, you're not. So I'm turning off the screen now.
No,